This is JCU Conversations, a podcast show from James Cook University, Singapore. Tune in as we ask experts in the industry more about their lives and their approach to success. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's listen to today's episode.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kim-Lim, lecturer at the Business School in James Cook University, Singapore. Today, we are very happy to have Mr. Yi Ming. Mr. Kao is the venture partner at Krux, an angel investor who is passionate about supporting startup and innovation. He is also the managing director of Orative Technology, which is a bespoke Gen AI solution provider. So, Yi Ming, welcome to join us at our JCU conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start off this conversation by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Great. So I have quite a wide range of experience myself. I've been in the startup and tech space for about 15 years, but I started my career in the military, actually. I have a master's in electrical and computer engineering that I got from University of Illinois. But from the military, I moved on into asset management and finance. I've done business consulting before I got my hands into startups. My last role was actually with Grab, where I was a managing director for one of the local businesses. But I have left in 2021 to start my own business, which is Krux Asia.
Wow, it seems that you had several changes in your career. You are in the public service, in the military, you went to the corporate, and now as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So what drives you?
Well, the transition for me was also a learning journey in terms of my own career, right? And also learning about myself. And one thing that I found was I've never been satisfied with the status quo. I've always wanted to find better and newer ways of doing things, right? How can we be more efficient and more effective in existing processes? So that's one thing that really drove me towards where I am. Secondly, I'm more comfortable in an unstructured, uncertain environment where you are able to shape the future by deciding how certain things can be done, right? So that's kind of a journey where I explored different aspects of my capabilities and my interests before landing into entrepreneurship. And as you can see, military, finance, business consulting, they all lend different skill sets to where I am today. And I think I draw from those experiences to apply it. And one of those things would be, kind of like moving into this space where I'm looking at the next generation of startups, either through angel investing or through building my own ventures.
Well, that is interesting. I mean, if I'm an entrepreneur and I want to start a business, a lot of times I will need help from angel investors because they are the one that brings in the capital. Not only that, right, they brings in the knowledge, the guidance, as well as even tips on how to survive as a newly bud or newly found entrepreneur. So maybe I just want to find out from you, what is your motivation? Why is it that you are so keen on helping the entrepreneurial ecosystem over here?
Well, one of my own personal life kind of philosophy is about education. In fact, my first startup was in an education space, and one of the ventures that I'm supporting today is also in education. The reason for me starting Krux Asia was also partly because of education, because I see a need for the next generation of founders to be able to start ventures in a faster and smarter way. Avoid the mistakes that previous generations like myself and my peers make, right? I kind of see startups as a large part of energy and time and money is actually spent in making mistakes, which is not an efficient way to start a new venture, right? With the ecosystem maturing and I wanting to be part of that, I find that education is a very important part, and angel investing is a way to kind of give back in both, like you said, a mentor, but not just financial, but mentoring, structure, advice, and educational approach.
Yeah. So talking about mistakes, right? I mean, you highlighted a few, and I think that one of the very key skills any entrepreneur must have is being resilient, because there will be times where you are stepping into the unknown and you do not know what you do not know.
Yes.
So share with us, share with the audience, share with me, what are some of the mistakes you make so far, and how do you overcome them? Or we can call them challenges.
There's a myriad of challenges that we face, right? And every time we start a new business, whether I invest in one or I lead the founding and the building of one, we are learning new things along the way, right? I think one of the key challenges that we see with startups is misunderstanding the market. We have a phase or a term that we call product market fit and searching for product market fit in startups. And the more efficient you are in doing this, the faster you get to scalability. But many startup founders misunderstand what this market is like, which is not a problem because that's usually the case because you are putting theory into practice. The problem is not responding fast enough to the data that's coming back to you. Right? As you learn with the market, whether are people buying your product or your services, whether they are engaging with them, are you making use of the information? That is something that startup founders or generally business people who start new businesses are not willing to move fast enough to respond to. That's one. I think the other one I would call out is misunderstanding the need for how important distribution and network is. Many founders, once again, they think they have a brilliant product, a brilliant service, and if they put it out there, people will come. That is clearly not true, especially in a world today where consumers all around us, like you and I, we are bombarded by different messages. Right? So you put these two things together, I think there's a lot that we can pass on to the next generation of founders on how can you find product market fit faster, how can you find distribution faster.
How about artificial intelligence? How does that comes in the picture, and how does AI helps an entrepreneurial journey?
Well, so AI is really the buzzword these days, and for sure. And large part of my own career is about digital transformation, and I see AI transformation as a natural progression, a natural next stage to digital transformation. Like how we move from pen and paper to Excel spreadsheet, and from Excel spreadsheet to online products and services. AI is the next layer that businesses ought to be looking as part of their business process. And there's multiple ways to look at it. I think one way for a startup founder is to actively invest in AI. Not necessarily produce an AI product, right? But the AI that drives decision making, right? Predictive AI. Those layers that are making decisions faster and easier, those are the things that we should all be looking into. And the great thing with technology today and the way AI is being distributed and talked about, large part of AI is open source. If not, there are plenty of SaaS products or cheap and available products for people to integrate into AI. And I would say that if you are a startup today and you're not using AI, you're already behind the curve, right? So that's the main thing I think about how we should be doing with AI.
Yeah, amazing. I always believe that AI is changing all the different aspects of our life. Not just about how we do business, but also how we get goods and services. Even as consumers, we are being encountering AI almost every other day. And I think that as an organization, it's not just about deploying the technology, but making sure that your organization has a culture that is ready to adopt it. There are many organizations where they bring in the AI, it did not take off as what the business owner envisaged because the culture in the organization is not ready for that. So I think this is one of the challenge that many organizations face when it comes to digital transformation. So this is where I would like to bring in another question, is that other than the softer side of or rather the hardware of the AI, what other challenges you have seen when we talk about digital transformation, when we talk about AI deployment?
If I was to just take out the word digital and AI for a minute and focus on transformation, the challenge with transformation in any organization is it's not a welcomed word within the corporate structure. If you look at transformation and innovation, these are usually not part of the top lines or bottom lines of any businesses, right? And I think that by itself, it already starts it off on a difficult foot. Secondly, it's very natural for humans to not want change, right? If you develop a process and the process is working very well, whether you're in logistics or healthcare or hospitality, you will want to stick with that process. You'll be hard pressed to want to change it, because changing it actually involves replacing a lot of the different people who are involved, retraining skills, upgrading. And so that is fundamentally a challenge when it comes to transformation. Nobody's ready for it. When you add in digital, or when you add in something as new as AI, you are talking about change that is unknown. Most people don't know how AI works. It's like a black box, right? Even I deal with Gen AI, a large part of our solutions are very deep tech, and we don't understand how those transformers or diffusion models work and in the back end, but we understand how the outcome. But even then, that means transforming with something that is unknown makes it a lot harder. So you put all these things together, I think these are fundamentally why it's difficult for organizations to make those change.
Yeah. I remember a couple of months back or even years, there is this psychology professors that says that every day when we wake up, we will have a strict routine of doing certain things. Like for example, the first thing I wake up for me is I will check my messages just in case, my boss messaged me. Or I check my email, then I do other things. And he says that try to change the routine a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like instead of checking your emails, you start doing something else. Mm-hmm. You'll find it very uncomfortable. Or even when we goes to work or goes to certain places, we have a fixed route we will take. We will go by the stairs, you will turn right, you will turn left, you take the bus. Try to walk a different direction. You feel very uncomfortable. And this simple anecdote actually reflect very well of what you are trying to say, that changes is difficult.
Yes. People
wouldn't want to, if possible, they wouldn't want to change. And I think this is a very key issue that many organizations face. In fact, if I can share that, if we want to talk about changing, it's not just about whether are you able to change. It's about whether are you willing to change. Mm-hmm. In an organization, we'll have people who is able to change. They have the skills, the resources, but they just do not want to change. The kind of approach will be very much different compared to someone who is able to change and willing to change.
Yes.
So I think this is where I will bring back to my question about success stories. And I'm sure that in your line of consulting work, you would have come across a lot of instances where you work with startups or other more companies about how to engage them and guide them. Would you be able to share a success stories that you've been part of where transformation or digital transformation has significantly improved the company?
Sure. So I think it's very natural for me to talk about the ride-hailing industry. I think this is something that for today in 2024, it's a natural thing that we take for granted. But if you look at 10, 15 years back, it was a very new and radical idea, right? Most of us were very willing to just wait by the street and hope that the taxi will come by. Either that, or we would call the call center and pay $5-7 back then, right, just to make sure a cab comes our way. And that is just a habit that we were all ingrained with as humans, right? Like you said, right? That routine, we just naturally wait at the taxi stand or wait by the roadside for a taxi to come along. But if you think about it, 10, 15 years ago, there were one key technology change that we all take for granted today, which is the mobile phone. But on top of that, the ability for the mobile phone to be integrated with GPS technology. This is something that we completely take for granted today, right? The phone knows exactly where we are. We don't even know where we are sometimes, but the phone knows it. But that ability for the industry, the technology people who saw that opportunity to say, hey, I can now use the mobile phone to bring the taxi to the human or the human to the taxi because I can track the location is a light bulb moment for the industry, right? But having said that, the need to overcome the immense amount of hurdles, and you're not talking about just the habits of us passengers and consumers waiting for a taxi, but you're also talking about the industry itself, right? The taxi industries who have their call centers who are very reluctant to change, the regulators who do not have the rules around how you can do street hail or ride hail. In fact, back then there was no such term as a ride hail, right? What constitutes that? Were there any regulations? All those gray areas. You think about it from the consumer, the industry, the regulator, right? This tripartite arrangement. There were so many hurdles, right? But it took an entire new wave of industries, the Ubers, the Grabs, right? All these big companies to believe in the technology, and it was a massive market transformation. And if you think about it, I would say that is a very important success milestone to look at from what we talk about, right? As a success story, that is something that is always put up there. But if you think about it, the technology companies not only had to deal with the regulators, they also had to deal with raising the right kind of money because it's not cheap, right? Putting all that together, I think that's something that it's really good to keep in mind on how we can really succeed, but it has to be handled on multiple fronts.
Yeah, I like the example about seeing opportunities and working on it. I remembered there is a particular company which is very much into film-making businesses. So this company has been very successful, branded name, household name. Everybody uses this company when it comes to photography. So one day the employee actually goes to the managing director and says that, hey, there's a digital wave coming. We need to change our business model. But the MD says, no, we are very good in doing what we are doing. Let us carry on. So later on, the digital wave came. And they realized that they want to change, but they are too late. So eventually, the company has to file for bankruptcy. And more than 10,000 people actually lost the job as a result of this. So this is where I want to find out more from you, from your expertise, is that when you talk about digital transformation, it's about the ability to see that, hey, there's an opportunity for me to do something. And many industries are trying to jump on this bandwagon. In fact, a couple of days back, Straits Times reported that the supply chain is also going on to digital transformation. Just I think 2 nights back, the news came out. So the point here is that what are the industries or areas that you think that digital transformation is still underutilized? Where are the opportunities are?
Well, so coming back to how I define digital transformation, it's a continuous spectrum, right? At this stage, people should already be looking at AI transformation, right? So if you ask me in the broad sense, every industry is always going to catch up, always needs to catch up on the digital transformation front line, right? You might have moved to Excel, but now you need a multi-layered database that Excel won't be able to handle, and you need to move further in. And when you have a multi-layered database, it becomes harder to retrieve information, and you need AI or a more efficient way to do it. So that spectrum continues to grow, right? And so if you ask me if there's any specific one industry that I will call out, or some industries that I will call out that are behind the digital transformation curve, I think everyone is playing catch-up. Constant catch-up. And I think the mentality that you mentioned just now about how it's important to think about ways to do things better, that needs to exist as part of the organization ethos. But calling that out too, right? And we talked about how difficult it is for an organization to have change. The reason why I looked at Krux Asia as a venture builder and a digital transformation consulting is the idea is how can you set aside a separate entity or resources to focus on transformation, right? Like this company that you mentioned, right, moving from film to digital. If they didn't have, it is because they didn't have a separate entity to look at innovation, right? And that isn't bounded by the corporate restraints. That helps them move forward. And likewise, I think any industry to adopt digital transformation, they need to have a standalone, separate corporate venture builder or corporate venture studio to drive innovation that is unbounded, that is not constrained by the parent company.
Yeah. So I forget to add on the story I said just now about the film industry. There's irony to it. There's irony. The irony is that the employee who actually talks about the MD about the digital wave have already invented the first digital camera, and it's just waiting to be launched. But the MD says no. So I think this is really back to the point where we say that about missing opportunities, about someone who doesn't have that far sight to see what is coming. And this is something that I want to just ask you, is that if you are able to travel back in time, all right, I know you are still pretty young, but let's say travel back in time to where you are when you started off your journey, where you started off your career, what would be the advice you give yourself?
Wow. I think, having had the chance to think about my own career and, thank you for being so nice about my age, but I do have quite a number of years. I think what I struggled with was trying to find where I could add value to the society or to the industries. Partly because I see myself as a generalist in a specialist world. A lot of times today we get a degree, we train for a very specific role, whether it's in marketing, data science, or a chef. But for me, I tend to have this ability to kind of be like a jack of all trades, kind of a generalist. And I struggled. During the earlier years, I was struggling to figure out, which is why I also had these various career transitions, right? So if I really had that opportunity to go back and look at it, I would say continue to be consistent. And I'm not being consistent about the role. I think be consistent about pushing boundaries, right? For me, I learned about what I didn't like for each and every role. And I learned now that I should accept that and find a fit along the way, right? So I think it comes down to having that persistence or that grit. And I'll tell myself, continue to explore, right? Don't be too, I was struggling to see how it could fit in. So don't be too quick to write myself off in the early years. And learn more about yourself. I think that's what I would tell.
Fantastic. I like the part about pushing boundaries. That's what I'm doing as a researcher. So I think thank you so much. It has been a fantastic discussion, and I think that we have learned so much from you. We look forward to you coming back again to our next conversation, and maybe we can see you around in the campus.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if we need to find you more, if our listeners want to find more about you rather, where can they go?
They can come to LinkedIn and find me. My full LinkedIn profile is at Yi Ming, Kauyiming. So happy to have a chat with anybody who wants to reach out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank
Nice.
you.